Hey guys, make sure you subscribe and turn notifications on for more great content.
Hello, it's Snappi here from ENCE, and today I'll be answering your questions. Eladris asks, after many years and games, do you still feel stressed when entering the stage? I would say I don't feel that stressed, but you can still feel kinda a little bit of nerves maybe. But when you get in the game, I don't really have it anymore, apart from after like a big clutch, you can maybe get a bit of adrenaline in your body. But I also see it as me being ready also means that I have to feel a bit more on my toes before the game. So I kinda these days welcome that feeling. But definitely it's not as it's not hurting me negatively as it might have done in the past where you were less experienced. Kevin IG, what are the best tips for maintaining good energy while competing? I would say make sure you get enough sleep, stick to sleep schedule during the tournament. Depending on when the games are, you need to schedule your sleep after that. If you have late games during the tournament, you will try to make it a bit later. If you have early games, you will have it a bit earlier. And then on top of that, I try never to overeat and eat unhealthy before a match. So starting from breakfast, I'll always get some good food in my body, and then during the match, I will try to maybe eat half a banana or something during maps. So that's how I do it at least. Johan Seafree, what's a skill that many people tend to overlook but you believe is crucial to have as a player? There are multiple skills that are super underrated. I think the ability to be not so locked into one role and creating space in the game. I think a lot of space creators are taken for granted, and I'm not talking about the ones who take all the best positions. I'm talking about the players who anchor, and then on the T sides they have to just run in and die in a lot of strats. I could talk about a guy like Madden in my team. I think he's very overlooked, and I think there are other players like him. A guy like Shush, obviously he gets a lot of credit in my opinion. He's the best support player in the world, so I think that is very overlooked. Aleph Photos, what is the worst map in the current pool and how would you make it better? I think this is a toss-up between 3 maps. I think Dust 2, Inferno and Vertigo are not the best maps. Dust 2 because it's stale, and I don't think the change really added much good to it. It just made the T's use way more utility and made it a very CT-sided map. Vertigo because I don't think there's a lot of strategic approach, and then Inferno because it's just a lot of waiting around, and again it has become very stale. People say it's the best third map, and I think the reason why it's such a good third map is because it's harder to stand out. Of course a team like G2 does it at the moment, but I think it's just a map where it's a bit boring to watch in my opinion. Lucas Virak, who is the GOAT of CSGO in your opinion? The GOAT of CSGO in my opinion has to be Simple at this point, or Device. I guess there can be cases made for both. Device because he won so much, Simple because of his high level during so many years. So I think those are the 2 main candidates in a GOAT debate. Sisu, which weapon would you buff? I would probably buff the FAMAS, could use a little bit of a buff. I think the Galil is actually very underrated, so probably the FAMAS. I guess you can make a case for the M4A4, but that's only because at the moment the silencer is so strong. I don't actually think it should be buffed. I think it's the silencer that should be nerfed a little. Mataj Stanojevic, why don't pro teams prepare all maps instead of having permaban maps? I think there is a few teams who's trying to play 7 maps. It's very few, almost nobody. I think most of the teams who say they play 7 maps don't really. It's just something they say to the public and to their teams to make them scared. So if they face another team with that permaban, they will maybe ban it against them. I don't think a lot of teams actually play 7 maps. The reason is that it's already hard to be good on 6 maps. So as soon as you add another map, you need to add so many layers in terms of strategic approach. Players have to remember much more. You have to do a lot more theory time on that map, and that will ultimately take away maybe 2 or 3% of all the other maps, which will make you less likely to win some of your better maps. So in a lot of cases it will be better to just have a permaban so you can focus your resources on the 6 maps. VicoCat, how much does team chemistry affect success? It is one of the key things, I think. I think if you have fun in the game, you will ultimately play a lot better. It will be a lot easier to work with each other when mistakes are made. It's so much easier to tell it to your teammates without them getting angry. And also the chemistry between what type of players you have is also important. If you have too many passive players, a T-side can be very rough because nobody is taking the space. So yeah, I think it's a very, very key component. I think it might be the most vital thing in a team. Atreya Bardhan, best player to never be #1 ranked in HLTV rankings. I would say that I actually didn't play back then, but to me it looked like Flusher got kind of robbed back when he got second. But if you had to say the best player who's never been ranked 1, I guess it has to be a toss-up between either Nico or Device, since they has always been very, very good players, but none of them has ever been the best player. I guess an argument in times, I don't think Device has ever been the best player in the world, but he's always been a top 5 player almost. And Nico has actually been the best player in the world in certain periods. But as a rifler, it's harder to get the numbers, and at the end of the day, HLTV do their rankings by the numbers. So as a rifler, I think it's harder to get that spot, and he hasn't gotten it. Kloigo official, what is most annoying, aggressive orbers or passive orbers? I would say T-side. The most annoying thing is the aggressive orbers, because you can be caught off guard all the time. I think, however, on CT a lot of the time, the passive orbers can be way more annoying because they're just holding an angle, and when you just peek for some info, then you just die. So I think aggressive orbers are definitely more annoying when you are playing on the T side, but it might actually be the opposite when you are on the CT. Tofu 5, which team has the best, worst logo or jersey? I always liked simplicity, and therefore I always kind of liked the Astralis logo, because if I wear casual clothes, I wouldn't want to wear clothes with big logos preferably, and I think they can make casual clothes with that little star easily and make some nice merch that can be used outside of CS and for, well, my age. Thanks for the question, guys. If you want to see more content, subscribe.